it was an epigenetic emergence, right? It was the way that their genes express themselves. That's what epigenetics is, right? That was so unbelievable, so unexpected, so undesignable, right? That I think it was at this moment, accidentally, right? Where we started to look at the rest of our operation and said, why do we work so hard to manufacture abundance?
Right. Listening to the Wildland Podcast with Morgan and Daniel Griffith.
Okay, on this episode of the Wildland Podcast, we're going to be talking about the whys of wilding. Maybe better said, our story of rewilding. And yes, Sequoia is here with us today. Say hi, Sequoia. Well, that was a big old smile. Okay, Morgan, take it off.
Yeah, so why did we get into rewilding? Where was our beginning? I think that what really set it off for us was our goat herd, right?
Yeah.
We got this goat herd from our midwife, Haley Anna. They were awesome. Where to start with them?
I mean, the goats were great, right?
The goats were great.
But we really quickly became aware that goats, like rabbits,
goats are very difficult.
So many goats so quickly.
Right, so many goats so quickly, they're very difficult to fence.
Right.
If they want to eat something, they're going to eat it. It doesn't matter what you have to say about that, right?
Right. Like Opal, one of our goats.
Yes.
One of our goats, the day before she kidded, I think is the correct word. I don't know this terminology. She jumped over like a 6.5 foot tall, like boarded up woven fence. Wire on the inside, boards on the outside fence, just like a standing leap. Yeah. It was unbelievable. And it was, I think at that point where you and I just looked at each other.
Nope, done.
We were like, no, done, no. And so we knew something had to be different, right? So we got the goats, long story short, because our first daughter, Elowen, was having some nutritional issues, wasn't gaining a lot of weight, et cetera. Another story for another day. And we thought, hey, maybe supplementing, mother's milk with goat milk was going to be advantageous for her health.
Right.
So we wanted the goats, right? And so we knew something else had to be done. And so continue on the story. Sorry.
Yeah, we knew something had to be done. We got this whole herd of goats, several mom and baby pairs, raised them up for a year, tried to do the whole fencing thing. They were no input goats. They were grass fed as we thought they should be.
Yeah, they ate a lot, but nothing we gave them.
They ate a lot, nothing that we gave them. Goats don't want to be grass fed. They want to be forest fed, grass fed, shrub fed. They want to be fed with whatever they need, right? So going back to Daniel's story of this goat, Opal, jumping this boarded up fence, later so she jumped it at night. Later that next morning, Daniel found her in the woods, right?
Right.
With 2 kids. She had twins. She hopped that fence to go have their babies.
19 degrees.
Yeah, it was February. It was February morning.
19 degrees.
From then, we just thought,
what if?
What?
What if Charles Eisenstein is correct? What if by losing control, right, motion, abundance could be unlimited?
Yeah.
Right?
Take it.
Oh, sure. Here's Sequoia. Sequoia, for all those who want to know, is a mama's girl. I am worthless. It's okay. I'll have worth one day. But anyway, so we lost control, right? Yeah. And what we saw years later, right? So the epigenetics, the genetics, both of them went in a very emergent and wild, right, pathway on a journey.
Right. And what he means by that is we completely let go of any and all control over these goats. They were free range. They had free range of 400 acres. More if they wanted to.
Absolutely.
Right? So they walked around, they fed themselves.
Some of our neighbors found, some goats in their yards.
Yeah. Which was fun.
They laughed about. Goats are cute.
But yeah, no food, no water,
no
minerals. And these goats, man.
They were amazing.
They were amazing.
I mean, never did we feed them, never did we water them, never did we trim their hooves, never did we give them copper boluses, never did we deworm them. They would breed twice a year, always would have twins, if not triplets. I mean, these goats were the pride and joy of Timshel.
Their coats were shiny, they were strong, they were healthy, they were friendly though.
They were friendly.
They were wild, but they were friendly.
It was an epigenetic emergence, right? It was the way that their genes express themselves. That's what epigenetics is, right? That was so unbelievable, so unexpected, so undesignable, right? That I think it was at this moment, accidentally, right? Where we started to look at the rest of our operation and said, why do we work so hard to manufacture abundance?
Right.
Right? Why did we, and I use this as an example, why did we kill the buffalo to cultivate the cattle? Right? And we took this same idea, these same questions, and extended it to our pigs, to our sheep, to our cattle. And now, many years later, we sit and we see the same results that our goats had. Sequoia's touching this wonderful spider plant. Snake plant. I'm sorry. Spider plant's above me. Well, anyways, we now, many years later, we were able to witness, right, the same results in these other species at our farm, including wild species. The same resilience, the same diversity, right? The same communities develop, and the interrelationships and interdependence of these communities in all of these species, just like we did the goats.
Right, but it wasn't without trials, though. Right. We saw these goats develop into a herd of goats, whatever. These goats were amazing, but what had to happen first before they became amazing? We had to experience death.
Uncomfortable amounts of death, right? The ones that needed excess inputs, the ones that wouldn't feed themselves if we weren't the humans, right? The farmers giving them that feed, they had to get out of the system. And some of them died, some of them we sold, some of them we, consumed. I mean, it wasn't just goats dying left and right, but the idea is that the genetics had to leave, right? They had to call themselves. And I think in regenerative agriculture, we say that the farmer becomes the wolf, in the sense that we, through polywire and calling, are able to push, the herds and the flocks through the pastures, just like the wolves and the predators did. Mm-hmm. But the actual wolves, or in this case, the black bear, mountain lion, and coyotes, really actually express themselves, right? The weaker goats were called off, right? And predator populations started to rise. And we were okay with that. Another great conversation for another episode.
Great. And what we learned through this natural calling process, though, was that the traits that we had originally selected for what we wanted our goat herd to look like were wrong.
Yeah.
Everything we thought we wanted, it turned out to be the complete opposite.
Right. And I think that's a really interesting conversation for the next episode, where we will be talking about the idea of emergence. It's the redefinition of abundance, right? Mm-hmm. We are pushing for, as humans, human constructs, right? Constructs that are profitable, that work in society and civilization, and all of these commoditizations of the natural world. That's what we are subconsciously or consciously pushing towards. Mm-hmm. But when you step back and you rewild, and you let your goats or your cattle or your pigs or your sheep be, which we're going to get into a lot more details there in future episodes, what emerges is one abundant, right? But it's not the abundance you were probably looking for.
Right. It's abundant, but it's also magical.
I like that. I would much rather farm, and maybe this is a perfect way to end this episode, I'd much rather farm with magic than farm with toil, sweat, pain, and hardship.
Right.
That's a story, that's a journey that I can jump on.
Agreed.
Sequoia, any last notes?